So the idea is that you would not have basic research unless the government funded it. You know, that would be news to Newton. That would be news to most of the scientists of the 19th century. Now, so where's basic research going to happen if not from government? Well, I mean, there are a lot of places. Some of the best basic research in the 20th century happened at Bell Labs, the old Bell Labs. I think it was in New Jersey. And they produced some of the most amazing innovations, and it was all private. And why? How could you make money off of basic research? Well, because basic research is applicable to stuff. So what Bell Labs would do is it would do the basic research, and then Bell, which would later become AT&T, and would then take that basic research and create products from it. And they would make a lot of money off of those products because they owned the basic research. So they had all the IP for these products. They had all the patents, so they could get a huge reward off of those patents. And they funded Bell Labs for a very, very long time. Thomas Edison did basic research, but the other place you would have basic research is universities. Universities like Harvard and Stanford that are private universities. So if you privatized all the universities, they would have profits that they would plow into basic research because that's what their professors wanted to do. Because if they're going to be good teachers, they want to do research. That's part of the trade. That's part of the trade involved. And those professors would demand great labs and great facilities, and tuition would go up to adjust for that, and students would be paying for it. Or maybe, like Stanford does a lot of that basic research is then sold to startups that then create products off of that basic research, and Stanford actually makes money off of the basic research, off of the products that develop from it. This is why intellectual property rights are so important. A lot of that basic research is important intellectual property that then becomes products out there. But what you might argue about those things that have no commercial use, I don't know, astrophysics. Now, even astrophysics I think has some commercial uses, but I'm no expert, so let's assume it doesn't. But people are interested in it. People are willing to pay for this kind of information. Again, universities are where most of this research would happen. But let's spin it around. I'm not interested in astrophysics. Couldn't care less. And let's assume it has no practical application. I don't know if that's true, but let's assume it has no. I assume it does because all human knowledge ultimately has practical application. But let's assume it doesn't. Why should I pay for it? It's not going to make my life better. Or take some poor kid who's making $24,000 a year, you know, trying to make a living, trying maybe to get an education in the evening, trying to feed himself and have an automobile and a basic living. Why should he pay taxes so that some, you know, professor should, you know, peer through a telescope and contemplate black holes? I mean, it's irrelevant to this kid. So, you know, what we want is a system where it's voluntary. So let's say I'm a billionaire and I love black holes. I find them really interesting. I can set up a whole department at a university that just looks into it. So philanthropy is a huge source of basic research. So corporations would do a lot of basic research. There's plenty of examples of that in American history. Universities would do it, funded by, you know, tuition, or funded by commercial application, or funded by alumni. And three, philanthropic institutions would do it. There would be institutions set up as pure research institutions that people really, really interested in it would provide money. Now, why don't we see this happening today? Because government has crowded all these people out. So universities do a lot of basic research, but you say universities get all their money from government through student loans or from some way or another. True, government basically dominates the university space. Why don't we have more Bells anymore? Because why should they? You know, even in the biotech industry, pharmaceutical companies do not do basic research anymore because NIH does it. The National Institute for Health. It's all funded by taxpayers, and then they you know, capitalize on that later on. So what's happening is government has basically taken over this field, and it's impossible to find enough scientists to find kind of the money, you know, to fund basic research. But let me put it. Let me make this what seemingly is an arbitrary statement, but I don't think it is. In a truly laissez-faire economy, there would be much, 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 much more basic research done than is done today, is my prediction. There'd be a lot more wealth, there'd be a lot more money in the hands of people interested in basic research, and universities would actually do things that are productive rather than, let their professors discuss arbitrary claims about multiculturalism or history or whatever the latest fad happens to be, that actually be resources for doing real research, proper research, whether it's in history or whether it's in sciences. And of course, corporations would do massive basic research because that's where they get their real profits from. So there'd be a lot more. And what you're seeing today is the crowding out by government and actually a decline in the quality because it's driven by government, and in the quantity of basic research.